communication resources, and faster and more reliable
technology.
Higher performance communication resources, and faster and more reliable.
How is everyone? Last talk of the day. Been a good first day of B-Sides? Yeah? Okay. How many of you guys, this is your first time here? Awesome. Second time? Third time? How many people in here have been here all 4 years? Okay, a couple. Awesome. This is my third time at B-Sides. I also spoke last year. And it's a lot of fun. I love B-Sides. How many of you guys are staying for the after party tonight? Okay. A few. Should be more. Anyway. Okay, so Googling like a boss, expanding the powers of OSINT for both blue and red teams, or red and blue teams, which, however, anyway, let me just quit rambling. My name is Ethan Dodge. I'm a Utah native. However, I currently do not live in Utah. But I recently took a job in the Bay Area, and one of my contingencies on my acceptance was I have to go to B-Sides Salt Lake City every year. And they said, okay. So here I am. It's good to be back. This is the first time I've been back in Utah since I moved out there. I do defer for a company called Nuna Health. We're a healthcare company, obviously from our name. I'm a perpetual learner. Follow me on Twitter if you'd like, and then dodgesec.com is where I do some blogging. But I'm a terrible blogger, I'm going to tell you guys right now. So, sorry. I'm a way better tweeter, and even that I'm pretty bad at. So, Nuna Health. I doubt anybody in this room has heard of us unless you know me and know that I took a job at Nuna Health. Anyone in here heard of Nuna Health? I knew it. No one. So we work with government and self-insured employers to understand and improve how people use healthcare. That's just really fancy PR language for we are a healthcare data warehousing company. And we also do some analytics on the data. Security is the foundation of our culture and our products. It's actually, I was talking to a couple guys. When I started, there was about 80 employees, there were 8 security people, a tenth of the workforce, right? We're taking security very seriously because we are a health company and we kind of have to. We're accepting resumes. We don't necessarily have an open position right this minute, but we will in the coming weeks and months. So if you guys are interested, come talk to me after. I love what I do because I get to do some cool stuff like what I'm going to talk about here. I'm throwing in a plug for my buddy Brian Wareheim. Follow him on Twitter, Brian_Wareheim, and his blog is nullsecure.org. All the research that I'm sharing in this talk, him and I did together. We wrote this talk together as well. Also, just a fair warning, I gave this talk like verbatim at B-Side San Francisco 2 weeks ago. So if you guys were there, I'm sorry. But hopefully you guys can enjoy it. Okay. OSINT. By the raise of hands, who knows what OSINT is? Okay. Who is willing to tell me what the acronym stands for? Shout it out. Open source intelligence. Okay. What is open source intelligence? Legal stalking. I like that. What'd you say, Lean? Okay. Yeah. Both of those definitely fall into the category of OSINT. It's pretty much using information openly available to gather some sort of intelligence, whether it's intelligence on your brand, intelligence on a person, intelligence on an industry, whatever. How many red teamers do we have in the room? Penetration testers. Okay. And you guys use OSINT all the time before going into engagement, I'm sure. You could use information such as social networks, public data records, leaked customer data. But how many of you guys in this room think that you've used OSINT at one time or another? Okay. I would imagine that was about half the room. I'd imagine almost everybody in this room has, because of our good friend Facebook. Facebook stalking, most common form of OSINT. Also, OSINT is very popular among over-aggressive girlfriends. Or wives. Lean, was that you that said that?
It was.
I'm telling your wife.
She'll watch the video.
Why OSINT? Private investigators, detectives, investigative journalisms, investigative journalism. How many guys are familiar with Brian Krebs? He uses OSINT all the time in like every article he publishes. Well, that I've read anyway. I don't actively follow him, but every article that I've read of his, he has used OSINT in some form or another. I know that if you guys have, I have read his book Spam Nation. He uses tons of OSINT in there. He was crawling forums to try and track down the botnets that were spamming out different fake pharmaceutical drugs, stuff like that. Criminal activity, law enforcement, also very common use, and threat intelligence, as was already stated. This is one of my favorite, explaining what OSINT is. It's not stalking. It's called being an internet detective, right? When you see a Facebook picture that piques your interest, then you all of a sudden start going through all their profile for past 3 years. Look at every single profile picture, right? Who's done that? We've all done it. You guys are all guilty. I know it. It's not stalking, but it really is. Kind of is cyber stalking. Disclaimer real quick. There actually is a really distinct difference between OSINT and stalking, depending on where you live, right? I'm pretty sure in the state of Utah, stalking has to include some form of physical following, like you actually have to follow the person or the persons somewhere in order for it to qualify for stalking. And yes, stalking is illegal, so don't do it. Or don't say that I told you to do it. All right. Let's go over the basic workflow for OSINT. First step is we're going to identify the source. Identify possible sources of intel. If you're a red teamer, I know one super common form of intel is LinkedIn. If you have an engagement for a company to do a penetration test on a certain company, you're going to start looking at every single one of their engineers' LinkedIn profiles, seeing what sensitive data, specific data that they put on their profile. Then you're going to validate it, see if it's valid, see if it's true. Some people will put dummy data on their LinkedIn profile. And then you're going to automate it, and we're going to talk about automation a lot more later on in the talk. Analyze. Does what you have collected apply to your target? If it doesn't, get rid of it, because it's just noise. Determine the probability of something being true. For instance, in the law enforcement case, determine the probability that this person really was at this place that they said they were. They said that they were here at the time of the scene, but they tweeted 2 minutes before the crime, and that tweet shows that they were right there. Apply confidence levels. We are 90% confident that this person was there at this particular time, and then generate new potential sources. It's kind of a spiral, a can of worms. You're gonna apply confidence, and you're gonna want to find even more sources to raise those confidence levels, or to even diminish those confidence levels. If you're not so sure about something, you need to find something that'll tip the barrel. If you're only 50% sure on something, you need to keep looking so that you can either be totally sure it's not true or totally sure it is true. And then enrich, add context to the target, add probability, and to develop a narrative. This person was here at this time of the day, and then they were here at this time of the day, and this happened, they were in this car crash, whatever. That's what developing a narrative is, right? How many of you guys have ever used Maltego or heard of Maltego? Okay, awesome. Maltego is one of my very favorite tools, especially for open source intelligence gathering. It is a link analysis visualization tool. Excuse me. So Maltego, what it is, link analysis visualization tool, you have a web of entities, it was what they're called. Let's say you're gathering intelligence on one specific email address, right? Then you could run different scripts that are called transforms, and it will show you relations to the potential names that this email address could belong to, or if it's a person and you go and you're trying to find out where they live, you could run a specific transform or a script that will form a web and show you potential, excuse me guys, show you potential addresses of where that person lives. You could visualize relationships. Common terms within Maltego are entities. Every single point on the graph, I have a screenshot of a graph here in a couple of minutes, it'll make a little more sense. Every single point on the graph is known as an entity, whether it's an address, a person, an IP address, whatever is known as an entity. Transform is, I like to think of transforms as scripts, because that's essentially what they are. That is what the script that is actually going out and trying to find the data that you are looking for, trying to find correlations and draw conclusions. And a machine is just running several transforms. Here's a transform example. This is a really common transform. Just by looking at it, can anyone tell me what it's doing? Yeah, that just went out and grabbed the DNS records for reddit.com. How many of you guys have ever developed your own transform? Really? Okay. Well, let's go over it really quick. It's super easy, and you can do it in pretty much any language. You just have to point Maltego to the correct binary. I like Python, so I'm going to go over in Python. They give you a nice Python library called Maltego transform, and you just say from Maltego transform import star or whatever module you want to import. Then you have to create an object, and then you just with that object parses the system arguments. Each entity in Maltego is taken as a system argument, as if you were passing it through the command line, if you were running the script from the command line. Such as this one of this location equals sysarg1. Then you call the object, and you have to return the output so that it will actually display on the graph. Shameless plug here. How many of you guys have heard of a Maltego transform called GAVL? Lean, the only one. Oh, saw someone else. Shameless plug because myself and Brian developed it. What it does is it digs up court case records from individual states. We only have it working for a few states right now, but if you, it works for Maryland and Delaware and I think one other state. We're working on all 50 states, but the pain is some of the states have their court cases filed per county rather than per state. Such as like the state of California, they have tons and tons of counties, and so that's a lot of code to write. But it is on GitHub, and we would love your help if you're interested in helping us out with it. But what it does is, different states have different information. Excuse me, got the hiccups here. Different states store different information for every single court case, for every single. When you get pulled over, there's a court case file with that, and that is public information. And different states, so Maryland, when you get pulled over, they store your license plate number in the court case record. So if I wanted to, and you got pulled over in Maryland, I could go in and see the license plate to the car that you got pulled over with. North Dakota, this is sad, stores the last four numbers of your social security number. So anyone here from North Dakota? No? I've never met anyone from North Dakota. But if you're watching, write your congressman and get that fixed, because that's sad. Tons and tons of sensitive information. There's the link right there. You just go to Brian Wareheim's GitHub and go to the GAVL repository. We have a table on there on the README that shows the states that we have completed, and we would love your guys' help. Here's an example of what it looks like in Maltego. You got Brian's name right there, and it shows 2 addresses that he was associated with and 3 license plate numbers. Yes, this is dummy data. It's not real. I tried to convince him to put the real information in, but he wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know why. Anyway, okay, story time. Some people put some pretty stupid stuff online, let's be honest, right? How many of you guys have ever seen this? Yeah, there's a whole Twitter account dedicated to retweeting this stuff. People will post their license plate, not their license plate, their driver's license, their credit card, anything with sensitive information, and this Twitter account will retweet it. There's dozens of these accounts. How many of you guys went to Metacortex's talk earlier today? He talked a little bit about being stupid on GitHub. I think he talked specifically about that, and in fact, I stole this screenshot from him. So, anyway, how many of you guys have seen this? Commit the Etsy shadow file to GitHub? That's scary stuff. That's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. I don't know about you guys. I'm sorry? DevOps loves to commit Etsy shadow files to GitHub. Yep, and then keep us up at night, right? DevOps and security, it's an ongoing battle. Okay, so this is the story that I'm going to tell here. I was contacted by a local university a few months back and asked to speak on OSINT in Maltego. And we were going to be speaking to their InfoSec club. And we thought it'd be fun to try and dox somebody in the club. Dox meaning dig up as much information as we could about this person and show them the real value of OSINT right there during the talk. There was a person in this club that I had met previously that we thought would be a pretty good target, and so I emailed this person and asked if that would be okay, and they said yes. I don't know how well you guys could read that text. Anyway, basically she just says, oh man, I was trying to hide the gender. Oh well. Basically she just says, yeah, that's totally fine. There's a couple paste bin leaks out there with my password and stuff, but nothing worse than that. Quick disclaimer, I have written documentation that she is okay with me sharing this at this conference. There is a fine line between gathering intelligence and then sharing it with other people, right? And you could definitely cross that line if you do not have, if you don't have permission, prior permission, excuse me. And I do. So anyway, so start with the best source of data. We looked at this girl's Twitter profile. She had something like 60,000 tweets. And she tweeted an average of something like 16 times a day. And almost all of them in the past 3 months or so had geolocation data enabled on them. So we went to Twitter. We needed a way to parse through all the data. So we automated it. We identified, validated, now we analyze. This is the code that we used. This is a Python function. Twitter only allows you to grab 200 tweets per request, and then they only allow you to pull the past 3,200 tweets at a time. Sorry, not at a time. They only allow you to pull the past 3,200 tweets. So what this guy does is it's just going and it's grabbing the past 200 tweets, and it's, you'll notice I'm keeping track of the ID number of each tweet because I'm going to pass it to this function later on, and the ID number is important there that I keep track of it so that I can go back. I could grab 200, then grab another 200, and then another 200, another 200, so that I don't overlap tweets, right? So we pulled all the tweets and looked at all the geolocation data, and we plotted it out on a map. Where do you guys think that is? What was that? Home. That is where she was living at the time. So this was fun. Another quick disclaimer really quick. Yes, I could be totally making this all up because I censored all of these screenshots for her protection, so that no sensitive information would get out there. So you guys are just going to have to trust me that this really did happen. So what this function does is it gets all the geo information from all the tweets, and then it passes those latitude and longitude coordinates to the Google Maps API. How many of you guys have ever played around with the Google Maps API? If you pass it a pair of latitude and longitude coordinates, it has a function where it will spit back a street address. So we did that. In Maltego, we added we added a part in Maltego where the thicker the line, so it had her Twitter handle, right? And then it had a bunch, you'll see in the next screenshot here, these lines, you'll see some are thicker and thinner than others. The thicker the line, the higher the confidence. The higher the confidence that, which essentially in this situation means that there were more tweets from that location, right? Those are 5 street addresses that came back from her Twitter profile. I know it looks like I could totally make it up, but I promise you that's what's blacked out there. So we were able to find where she lived. We were able to find where she spent most of her time on campus. We did not go this far, but we definitely could have found it. We were trying to find out what her school schedule was based on where she tweeted on campus at what times. We didn't have enough data to do that, nor did we really try hard enough. We just messed around with it. Then there was this transform. How many of you guys have ever heard of haveibeenpwned.com? Okay. So haveibeenpwned.com will allow you to just put in an email address, and then it will spit back any data breaches that your email addresses have been involved in. She was involved in this one particular data breach. Anyone know what that big long string is down there at the bottom? That is a password hash. So this transform, what it did, rather than using the web interface for Have I Been Pwned, it just used the API, and it went to Have I Been Pwned. We gave her her email address. We gave it her email address. Came back with a password hash. That password hash is unsalted. So salt your hashes, people. And that's what it comes out to be. We were able to find a rainbow table online and crack it. And when we did that, we kind of looked at each other and said, "Okay, we have a lot of power here in our hands. Let's take a step back, and before we go any further, we need to tell her." Right? Well, not necessarily tell her about the password. So I sent her an email, and I said, "Hey, we've gotten to a point in this engagement that we're hitting a bit of a gray line. We want to attempt to log into some of your online accounts. Are you okay with this?" She comes back and says, "Yeah, go ahead, that's fine." I don't have anything too embarrassing, right? So we take her Twitter handle, we throw it into knowem.com. Knowem.com, KNOWEM.com. Any of you guys familiar with this website? You just throw it, a handle in there, and it will come back and tell you if that handle is available or taken on certain websites. This is just a sample. It really has hundreds, maybe even thousands of sites that it queries for that handle. Anyway, she had a unique username, and well, I guess it wasn't unique because she was using it across all the websites, right? Anyway, so we were able to go in and log into a few of these websites using that password, and we got this type of information. That credit card was expired, but we were able to verify that we got the correct home address for her, because the billing address was the same that we had gotten from Twitter. There we are in her Reddit profile, or it could be my Reddit profile, just with a black square over my username. You'll just have to believe me on this one. Here's a list of all the things that we found. So we found her home address via Twitter and Etsy. That credit card information that I just showed you guys, that was from Etsy. We were able to determine some of her class locations, and had we had more data, we definitely could have. We were able to get her password. We found her close friends based on who she was communicating with the most on Twitter and Instagram. She also made a nice little list for us on Twitter that was called Close Friends. So that was easy. We were able to verify her job history, LinkedIn and Facebook. We were able to get her home IP address based on her login history on Reddit, which was really cool. And you can imagine the damage that you could do with that. We were able to verify her birth date, where she got her hair done because of Twitter, because she tweeted it out. We were able to get her addresses to her parents' home. We were able to determine how many members of her there were in her family, and we were able to get all of their names as well via those sources. So it was a lot of fun. That was my first offensive-ish engagement, and I had a lot of fun. You red teamers out there, what would you do with all of this information that we had gathered? Put it in a report, okay. What would you try before you actually finish the engagement, though? With all this information, say she worked at a company that you were spearfishing. Fish all the things, right? Or social engineering. So we did try and fish her with this information. She opened the email, but did not click the link. However, she did think the email was legitimate, and for whatever reason just chose not to click the link. So that was a win on her part. So the use cases for red team, the OSINT use cases for red teaming are fairly obvious. How many of you guys have ever thought of using OSINT for blue teaming? Yeah? Okay, a few of you guys. How would you guys use it? I'm curious. Okay. Okay, perfect. Seth, what? Same thing. Anyone else? Understanding attackers? Perfect, perfect. So, any Johnny Cash fans in here? I'm not a Johnny Cash fan. I just thought it was clever with what I'm about to say. This is what I'm about to go over is a very, very fine line. Monitoring employees and their behavior online can be a huge privacy concern to a company. You should not do this lightheartedly. You should not do it without consulting first your CTO, your privacy officer, your CSO, whoever, or your legal team, whoever it is that's over privacy. They should be heavily involved with this decision should you choose to go this route. Also, another fine line to walk is I'm not going to suggest that you tell your users you can't be posting this kind of stuff online, but you guys will see later what I will suggest. So, Twitter. How can we use Twitter in a blue team situation? See if public activity from any of your employees is malicious. If they are spilling company data, right? Are they following competitors? That's really not that big of a deal, but are they talking with competitors, right? Are they talking about your brand? Are they misrepresenting you, right? Instagram, kind of the same thing, but Instagram is also interesting because it's solely pictures. Are people posting pictures and that have them wearing their work badge and they don't realize it? Or is there a password written on the whiteboard, which there should never be a password written on a whiteboard, behind them in the picture? Or network diagrams, right? Are they just oblivious to their surroundings, taking a picture in the office and saying, "Oh, look how much fun I had in the office today," right? I'll go into now automating the analysis of photos is a little difficult, but I'll go into that how you can accomplish that a little bit later. GitHub, Danny or Metacortex went into a great deal about this earlier today. Are they committing sensitive files? Are they committing proprietary code? How many? Well, no, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if that's happened to you. Are they committing company info? One time, I was participating in a CTF on the red team, and we found one of the blue team's shared GitHub repository. Lean's laughing because he was on the red team with me. And we found their GitHub repository where they were collaborating for the CTF, and there we found their emails and phone numbers, and we had a good time prank calling them, right? So are your employees committing info that should not be out there publicly on the internet? Facebook, kind of same thing as Twitter, sending the public information, public activity malicious. Are they friends with competitors? Are they talking about your brand? Brand monitoring. So this is a very interesting, totally, I'm actually in the middle of writing a separate talk on this topic of monitoring your brand and reputation via OSINT. How many of you guys have ever heard of Scumbler by Netflix? Okay, we got one person back there. Have you used it? No, okay. All right, what Scumbler does, excuse me, basically you could tell Scumbler to go look for this email address or any email address at mycompany.com, or you could tell it to go look for pretty much anything, and then you give it a list of sources where you want it to look, and it will come back and say, I found this on this page, for instance, if you want it to monitor the dark web, right, or the forbidden place where we never ever go, to see if the attackers are talking about your brand, and one of your keywords is your company's name, or one of your domain names or something, and that comes up in some known hacker forum. Scumbler will alert you on that. You can monitor chatter, monitor for your name, stuff like that. Like I said, I'm in the middle of writing a whole nother talk about this, and in the middle of researching this topic. Rate employees. So in this particular situation, this girl that we doxed, like I said, I'm not telling you to go up to employees like that and say you can't be posting this much online, because that's really none of the company's business, right? But you could rate her and say she is very active online. We are going to monitor her much more than this person who doesn't really do that much stuff online, right? And therefore, you could alert, if an alert comes from her through your SIM, it'll be a higher alert, a higher criticality, and then you could correlate as well via your SIM. So here's another shameless plug here. Interrogator is a web application that Nuna, us at Nuna, that we're planning on developing. And basically what it will do, our vision for it is that it will be Maltego in web form. And you will give it a person's name, a Twitter handle, a domain name, whatever you want, and it will perform continuous OSINT monitoring of your workforce. You'll be able to visualize relationships via a graph database like Lumify or Neo4j, something like that. We hope to have at least an alpha or beta version out by mid-2016. But we are very excited about it. We're going to open source it because there's not a whole lot. There's a lot of tools out there available, but they cost a lot of money. Have any of you guys heard of LexisNexis? What was the other one that they told me? Anyway, there's a bunch of tools that law enforcement use, but they cost a lot of money because government is willing to fork out that money, right? So this is meant to be an open source project, community driven, so that everybody can have access to this type of information. How many of you guys have ever heard of Justin Seitz? He wrote the books Gray Hat and Black Hat Python. There go the head nods. Okay, he does a lot of OSINT, and this is from his blog. Automatically Finding Weapons in Social Media Images, Part 1. He just recently published Part 2 as well. And basically, in this article, he goes through and he shows you how you can use different services online to identify objects and pictures. He is, as he states here, he's specifically looking for weapons because he likes to track gang activity and other geopolitical military activity. But you could also apply this to your workforce. Is there a network diagram, like I said, in the picture, or is there a badge or some other type of sensitive information that you want to look for? I would highly recommend going and reading these two articles. So just some recommendations real quick. I highly recommend following Justin Seitz on Twitter, as well as the Gruck. How many of you guys have ever heard of the Gruck? He is also very big and heavy into OSINT. AutomatingOSINT.com is Justin's blog. And Bellingcat.com is one of my very favorite websites. They are investigative journalists, more focused on the geopolitical activity happening in the world, but they use completely open source investigations. And I really like reading it because it helps me get my mind and the wheels spinning in my head about how I can possibly use OSINT in my day-to-day job. Any questions? No? Yeah? Yeah, sorry. Go for it. We were using the community version. Yeah, because most of those transforms that we were using, we just wrote ourselves, and that's all you need. Good question. Any other questions? Yes? Yeah, it's going to take some time, right? And we were hoping to. When we first started it, we didn't realize how big of a can of worms we just opened, right? We just went to a couple states, and we started out with Maryland and Utah because that's where we're from, right? And they both do it by state. And then when we dove into other states, we tried to do it for Arizona and California. They file it by county, right? So really, the only way that I think we can accomplish it is through the help of other people in the community. And I would love to be able to get all 50 states, but to be honest with you, I don't know how realistic that really is. But I think our vision and our goal is that as someone needs information for a certain state or county, that they would work with us and develop the transform. Yeah. So specifics like that, I'm not 100% sure how it works. I think that would depend on, and vary by state, right? If an officer actually does file a warning, or if it's just a verbal warning, I don't know. But great question. Any other last questions? Yes. In order to search court cases in Utah online, you have to pay like a $25 or $50 fee or something like that. But you can go to any county courthouse and search the records there for free and print them out. And that's what we ended up doing in our engagement with this particular person. But to be honest with you, this whole thing is a total pain because, of course, these sites that hold the court case records don't have APIs. And so we're just using Beautiful Soup to parse through the HTML. This guy's laughing because he's used Beautiful Soup before. It's not a whole lot of fun, but it's awesome data once we actually do get it. Any other questions? No? Come find me after if you do have another question. Oh yeah, Lean. Yes. In fact, I've written a couple, yes. And that's actually how we were able to verify her parents' address in this particular situation was through the county records. So when somebody buys a house, that purchase goes on public record, and anyone can go and look that up. But that is also by county, which is also a pain, right? So it's kind of, in our situation, we're just kind of doing it as needed. But it's a great correlation tool. Any other questions? All right, if you guys have any, come find me, or you could hit me up on Twitter. My email is ethan@nuna.com, and be sure to check out my blog. Thanks, guys.